Welcome back, everyone, to Rides and Drives Team Radio. I'm Harvey and she's Kaz, and we're excited because we just watched a phenomenal IndyCar race, the Good Ranchers 250 at Phoenix Raceway. We saw a race where Josef Newgarden came from the back to win at the last minute. We saw Kyle Kirkwood hold off Davey Malukas to finish second, and Malukas took that third place on the podium. There was tons of action up and down the grid. I think there were something like 565 on-track passes. There were 145 passes in the top 10. There were 18 lead changes during this race. This race was phenomenal. But you know what wasn't phenomenal?
What?
The broadcast.
Oh, I know.
Fox blew it. And I'm not talking about the announcers because I think they were okay. But who's ever producing this show needs to understand when cars are going to pit, because pit strategy is everything in IndyCar. And if you can't follow the pit strategy, you can't follow the race.
We talked about this after St. Pete. At the time, I was lucky to be watching the Sky Sports feed. This time, that was not available to me. I was watching the exact same Fox broadcast as everybody else. The pure ire I felt when I saw Pato ducking into pit lane inside that tiny box. And I watched it and I thought, good stop from Pato. And then I realized we're opening the pit window under commercial break again. The first pit window in a short oval, the kind of race where your pit strategy matters so very, very much. It is going to decide the race. And to come back from commercial break, find Pato leading Malukas, find people on the alternate strategy still out, and not understand how we got there.
Right.
The announcers were working overtime to try and catch us up. Did Buxton say some goofy stuff? Him speculating on whether or not Armstrong could pull off a two-stop was insane. But they were working very, very hard to try and get us caught up. And I think that a casual fan, somebody tuning into this race, might have had a really hard time following everything. And given that they're trying to book this race as the sort of thing to bring people in, let's appeal to NASCAR fans. Let's welcome them into our space. And then they broadcast it in such a way that it's so difficult to follow and you miss the action, the reason we're watching it. It makes no sense to me. And it was bad that it happened on the first pit window. And then they were also at commercial when the alternate strategy came in.
Right.
But beyond that, I don't know the exact lap Pato pit on because it happened on commercial break. I couldn't write it down. Even if my notes were exceptional, I wouldn't have it in there. But I know that Malukas led 72 laps. I heard the announcers say later that Pato came in 6-7 laps prior. So Pato probably pit somewhere around lap 68. Why are we at commercial break at lap 126?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Close to double 68. I mean, it's not quite there. It was a little early that drivers came in. But within 10 laps of the pit window, you should not be thinking about being an ad break.
No, I mean, your job as a producer is to understand how the race is going to flow, prepare yourself for it, and then make adjustments as the race goes on. Now, obviously, there's action all the time in an IndyCar race because that's, especially on a short oval, that's IndyCar racing. But to not know that the first pit window would be somewhere between, say, lap 70 and lap 80, right? And not prepare to have that open for viewing and have commercials in that slot is just negligence, I think.
I can't understand how this incredibly basic mistake was made 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
I am really struggling to understand why they're clearly putting a huge investment in their IndyCar coverage. Why are they getting this simple thing wrong? And look, the timing tower was off frequently as well, and I do have a problem with that, but it pales in comparison to my problem with the ad breaks. I can't understand how this is happening. I have zero television production experience. The closest I have is this podcast. And I still think I could have produced a better race than whoever cut that together.
Yeah, that was not well done. Um, so rant over. Fox, fix your timing on commercial breaks. You got to get that right. Otherwise, you will lose viewers throughout the race. I mean, there was a time when we came back and I forget who it was. Power was in a, had really good position. And it was like, how did he get there? What, is he running a different strategy? I have no idea.
And then
So
we just have to wait for them to have
yeah,
time to catch us up.
yeah.
And you're right. Rant over. I've been annoying everybody in my life with this rant for the last hour and a half, and it's time for me to let it go because you're right. The racing product was really great, but that honestly makes it worse because, like I said, I think there were a lot of NASCAR fans tuning in this weekend to see what IndyCar's got. The people who went to the track had a great time, and I'm really,
Sure.
really happy for them.
Yeah.
But the people who watched on TV might not come back because they might have missed what makes it so great. I mean, sure, we had a lot of good stuff that we did see.
Yeah. Watching Christian Rasmussen make pass after pass on the edge of adhesion was phenomenal, right? I mean, that was great racing. Watching him just, he's driving on the ragged edge with that car set up a little bit loose, and he's just catching it corner after corner. That was unbelievable driving.
I work with dogs, and a lot of times when I get a really happy dog, I give it a scritch and I go wiggle butt, wiggle butt, wiggle butt. That's how I felt about Christian Rasmussen's car.
There you go. That's his new nickname, Christian Wigglebutt Rasmussen. So,
He's just wobbling. You watch his hands, and he like Milwaukee all over again. That guy's turning right way more frequently than anybody should be on an oval. It's
that's
it's
right.
really amazing to watch him drive, and yeah, let's
Yeah.
just
So
talk about him because I think he was a big story of the day.
yeah, he's one of those guys, and we talked about this a little bit before the getting on here. The good day, bad day
Yeah.
guy, right? He had a phenomenal day until he didn't. And
Yeah.
then, he and Will came together and he fought hard to stay up there, but ultimately he couldn't. And, you saw his post-race interview. He was distraught
He was
about what happened.
devastated.
And
Yeah.
you feel bad for him because that shouldn't have happened. So, and same with Alex Palou. Alex Palou had a good day for the first 10 laps he was in the race until he didn't. He went
I
from
think
10th
I think
to
he gained like
4th.
4 positions on the first lap.
Yeah, he
I
went from
think he did something insane like that. So, both of these guys had little good day, bad day situation. Who had a bad day to make that happen, Harvey?
the spotters had a bad day to make that happen. Those guys need to know that someone's coming up behind him in that space.
Yeah,
At that point in the race, Alex is not going to go all the way to the wall if he knows someone is there because he knows he has the whole race. If that guy gets by him, if Renus gets by him at that point, big deal. He's got 240 more laps that he can catch him and pass him, and a lot is going to happen. He's not going to go to the wall. He had
hmm,
no idea he was there. He said that when he watched the replay
yeah.
with the announcer at the interview after the crash. He said, "I had no idea he was there."
And
Will
Will
said
said
the
the same
same.
thing in his radio. I had no idea he was behind me.
Yeah, and that's a failure of your spotter. And for people who don't know, your spotter is a teammate, and this is why this is a team sport, who sits up on top of the grandstand and can see the whole track. And he's there in the ear of the driver saying, you're clear up high. You've got someone on your right, coming up on your left, clear ahead, clear behind, just constantly giving you because you can't always check your mirrors. Where they had those incidents coming out of turn 4, you're not checking your mirror as you're looking for the dog leg. No, you're looking at the apex up there. You're sliding up to the wall, looking at the apex, trying to make the timing just right so you can stay fast, and you're not looking at your mirror, and that's why you need your spotter there. And if your spotter is not doing his job, stuff like that happens, and
You,
that's too bad for both of those guys.
and a communication problem like that from Will and Andretti is not so surprising. They're still learning how to communicate with each other. Um, from the 10 car though. That's the
Yeah.
kind of mistake that you see them make so very rarely. And I think the other drivers, well, nobody wants to beat Alex because of an error on his part. They they do want to beat him regardless.
Right.
If it's a choice between losing to Alex or beating Alex because he DNF'd, they'll take the DNF every day. I think everybody was thrilled to capitalize off those points because of Alex out of the race.
Yeah, I think it was Kirkwood in the post race press conference who said, I'd rather beat him straight up, but I'm happy to be ahead of him.
Yeah, I can breathe a little easier knowing that I
Yeah,
can finish the race without seeing that 10 car in my mirror at any point. That's a
right.
nice thing to know, I would imagine. Speaking of spotters, I think that this is a great time to talk about a good day from Team Penske because
Yes.
Josef Newgarden mentioned at the press conference after the race, he spoke about his spotters and about how helpful they were to him. About they weren't just communicating who was nearby him, but he said his spotters were frequently communicating him with him about how people were utilizing the high line and when and where it was going to be particularly safe and appropriate for him to use. What an excellent usage of those spotters, and what a great level of communication from a team that struggled last year.
Right. Yeah, it's I think we talked about it after qualifying. Penske's back, and I think this solidifies this. That they are going to be gunning for the championship. Someone asked Joseph in the press conference if he felt like he was a championship contender now. I think he said, I'm the championship leader now,
He
which
said, "That's an actual fact. I'm the championship leader," which is
um
a very cheeky way of not answering that
yeah,
question,
but
while
but at
also
that
telling us, yes, he is. He is a championship contender. It's two
but
races in,
yeah,
but
but
that's where he is.
the thing he said is every time we started a season with this team, I never felt like we weren't a championship contender. Now, last year didn't go the way they thought it would, clearly, but this year certainly has started in a more Penske-like way. So I think we're going to see Penske, Ganassi, Andretti. Certainly those three teams competing for the drivers' championship, and I think that, we'll see where McLaren can come. I mean, Pato had a decent day, quiet day, but a decent day, right?
Okay, I want to say something bold before we go to McLaren. I don't know how bold this is. After two races, I don't think Penske is on the same level as Andretti and Ganassi. I think Penske has outclassed them as a team. Now we've got Alex in the Ganassi, and that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
But if I'm picking what team looks the most dominant right now, I think it's very clearly Team Penske. And that
Yeah, because
level of shakeup on this season is nobody was talking about Penske in the same level as Andretti and Ganassi at Content Day. And that was 1.5 months ago.
right. No, I agree with you, and that's why nothing matters until you get on the racetrack,
Yeah, you
right?
got to do the races.
You've got to
Yeah.
do
So, okay, McLaren and Pato. Um, that's a good day, bad day for me. A fourth place finish is a great result, but
yeah,
it's a short oval where Pato typically does very well. He was in great position to win this race, or at the very least to make a podium.
yeah,
The fact that he wasn't able to get by Malukas, letting Newgarden by him, Newgarden is that guy on this
right.
type of race. I don't judge anybody for letting Newgarden by, but I am very surprised that with that tire differential, he wasn't able to catch up with even Malukas. I know the Penske looked great, but the McLaren also looked very, very solid, and Pato had a huge advantage. So
Yeah.
while a fourth place finish is good, I don't think it's the day he wanted.
No, I agree with you. I think Malukas said I was driving sideways those last 10 laps.
Yeah.
He was hanging the tail out. He was doing everything he could. And the fact that Pato never pushed him hard enough to make him uncomfortable or
Yeah.
more uncomfortable, I think is surprising. I don't know whether Pato just didn't have the setup in the car. He had the tires, right? He had the fresh tires. Did he not have the setup in the car, or did he just not go for it? Which would shock me, right?
He just didn't inspire me today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I just don't really have I don't really have a lot to say about his drive.
it was very quiet, his
It was
drive.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah. There was nothing spectacular in it. And he finished fourth. So
Yeah.
solid points for him. But again, I think that the rest of that team, we expected them all to be better. And I don't think as a team, they looked as strong, obviously, as Penske, but even as, Andretti looked phenomenal until, well,
Until they didn't.
Power was running strong up front. He got to the front because they made some good strategy moves. And when he got to the front, he ran strong. It took a lot for them to run him down. And obviously what happened with him and Rasmussen was just too bad. But then, you know, um, Kirkwood was running great, and but Ericsson was nowhere for the race. I think again with the broadcast, it was really hard to tell where
Erickson was
people were.
both up there and not at various points. And he's a guy who I lost track of because
Yeah,
of the way the broadcast was working. And when it became clear I didn't need to watch him, I stopped watching him and started putting my focus on the people who I could tell were involved in the race
yeah.
based on what I could piece together from tiny little picture boxes during ad breaks.
But
Thanks, Fox.
yeah, but I think Andretti's looking solid. I think Penske obviously looks like the class. Dixon had a great drive again for a while,
Yeah,
and
for a little bit.
and finished fairly strong, right? But it wasn't what you hope for the guy who is the number two driver on that team, right?
It wasn't the 10 out of 10 Chip Ganassi team that
Yeah.
we have been priming ourselves for and ready to expect. And much as I am a fan of Scott Dixon and a fan of Alex Pillow and a fan of Marcus Ericsson, I am really thrilled to see some more parity because
Oh yeah.
that's what I'm here for. So,
Yeah.
so I'm
This isn't going to be a
personally,
runaway this year.
yeah, I'm personally really, really happy that Chip Ganassi had a middling day. And, I'm sure they'll get their flowers maybe in Arlington. So
We'll
shouldn't be a
find out.
problem for any of them. You know who else had a bit of a good day, bad day all in one moment? This is the tiniest little bit that wasn't consequential for the race at all. But how impressed were we at Dennis Hauger's save?
Oh, that was right up there with Danny Sullivan's spin and win at the Indy 500 many, many years ago. To see a guy come out of a corner, swap ends of his car like that, and then drive backwards down the straight until he had room to do a J turn, whip it around and go forward. That is some class A car control.
I went from like, okay, rookie to okay, rookie in about 5 seconds. And that's a cheeky kid.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what kind of moves this guy has.
This was also another great high point in the broadcast. And I'm going to give Joey Logano props here because he was the guy who noticed that it wasn't a random save. As his car was going backwards into the inside wall, he lifted off the brake so the wheels would start spinning, freeing him up to make that save. So, and Logano pointed that out. And then you see it in slow motion and you go, oh yeah, all of a sudden the wheels start turning and everything's happening. And I thought Logano was really good as a race driver commentator with a
Talk
lot of
about
what he talked about.
talk about a pure good day. Joey Logano had one. I thought he was excellent. I wasn't very excited when it was announced he was going to be in the booth, just because, we have our guys who we know, and I didn't want them to have to be like explaining little details to a guy who, and I don't know what he's like as a person. I thought maybe
Yeah.
he would talk too much and take up too much air. He chimed in appropriately with really thoughtful comments, asked great questions that I think probably did help some of those NASCAR fans bridge the gap.
Right.
And not just there were a few moments where you noticed something technical. It wasn't just that. There was a moment later in the race when they were talking about when the tires are going to go,
Hmm.
and our leaders are maybe hitting that part of the end of the stint where you really start to see a lot of fall off, and that's why this gap is shortening. And Logano said, the way I see it, they're hitting backmarker traffic now. They were in open air before.
Right.
Hinchcliffe knows this very well. He's an excellent former racer. Current racer. He raced last
Yeah.
weekend. We know that Hinchcliffe knows about backmarker traffic, but the fact that Logano is the guy who caught it and the guy who is confident to say to these three guys who do this every week, like, oh no, hey, I'm pretty sure it's this, actually was really impressive. He was fun to listen to. I liked him a lot. Maybe I'm a fan of a NASCAR driver now, which I did not know that I was. Cool.
There you go. That's
Cool.
great.
Yeah, the
Well,
weekend worked as intended.
yeah. No, it was a good race. The people who were there got a great show. The
Hmm.
stands looked pretty full from some of the pictures we've seen,
I've
right?
seen photos. I saw a good amount of people during the broadcast, of course, and I've seen a number of photos from Reddit that look like pretty full crowd sections. Of course, that's not like a full. Your section
Right.
might be full, but the one three down might be completely empty.
But
Who knows?
but they did. I think they did a good job of selling the grandstand from top to bottom.
Yeah.
You want to sell those high seats first; those are the best seats, and then sell it down. So I thought that was that was good. They got a great show. Hopefully next year, they'll come back and we'll have another great show, and we get a good oval early in the season in the Southwest.
And I want to say this too. I said earlier this week that I didn't want this to be a NASCAR doubleheader next year, that I wanted this to be a solo IndyCar race next year. And I still do wish, hope, dream, and wait for the day when IndyCar will be the Sunday race.
Hmm.
But I think the doubleheader worked great for a couple of reasons. I think the crowds looked awesome, like they were having a great time, and everything I've read from people there has been really positive. I think it's just kind of a fun spin on the broadcasting, the way we get to kind of learn a little bit about another
Hmm.
world. And the drivers said that extra rubber from the NASCAR practices put that track in better condition from the start of the race. And
Right.
while the first stint was a bit of a parade at times, lap one was fire. We
Yeah.
had so many guys making passes on that high line. And Joseph told us in the press conference after the race that if you don't have the willingness to drive on that high line, it closes.
Right.
And because of all that NASCAR rubber, everybody was confident to move into it right from the beginning. I think we possibly got a better racing product because the NASCAR rubber was on the track.
That could be. It was a great race. If you didn't see it, watch the replay. It'll be on the IndyCar website. I'm sure it'll come up on FS1 or FS2 at some point. Watch the replay. It's a really good race. Hopefully they'll fix some of those commercial breaks in their replay.
You know what? This is one that I would recommend watching highlights or extended highlights because I'm sure the way they'll cut it will make it make perfect sense.
Yeah.
Once I will go back and do that later tonight, and then I will know what happened with Marcus Ericsson and why he finished behind Will Power.
Yeah. No, overall, though, really great race. Good weekend for a lot of people. Um, Decent weekend for me on
Yeah, we've
our
got our own little
prediction game.
game. We've got our own little race going on.
That's
So
right.
let's get to Rides and Drives Team Radio Victory Lane, get to our predictions. We, as always, start with the podium. And in third place, Harvey, you had Alex Pillow, and I had Pato Award, and neither of those
So
guys wound up on the
neither,
podium.
yep. So 0 points there.
Nothing on that.
P2, I had David Malukas, who ended up on the podium. So I got him in the wrong place, but I get a point.
You sure
So
do.
give
And
me
I had
one.
Joseph Newgarden, and I knew that I said he was. I'm. I knew he was going to win this race so much that I put money on him to win this race. So I'm not at all disappointed that I don't get the points because I get to take home some real world money. Either way, I still do get one for having him on the podium in the wrong
All
position.
right. But I had him on the top step of the podium because I
Yes, you
picked first.
did.
So I get 2 points there.
Excellent job for you. We're all very
And
happy for you.
you had Scott McLaughlin, who did not make it up to the podium, although he had a pretty solid day.
he had a fine day. I like I said last week, I kind of picked him for fun. It was a toss up between him and Malukas. What are you gonna do? It was a fun pick to make
So we're 3-1 after that round.
after the podium.
Biggest mover, I had Willpower, which looked like it was going to be a phenomenal pick until it wasn't.
I was really fussy with you for a little while there. But yeah, unfortunately, Will put himself
Will's
in a place where he shouldn't be. He wasn't told there was somebody else there. A whole series of horrible events that led to him really not
right.
having the greatest day. I had Scott Dixon, who did move up fairly well, just not nearly as much as Felix Rosenquist, who moved
Right.
from 24th to 12th. A 12 position bump is fantastic for Rosie.
Yep.
And, good day, Dixon, but not for me. Unfortunately, that's
No
0 points for the
points.
both of
No
us.
points for the both of us. For our biggest busts, I had Stingray Rob, who didn't have a great day, but he wasn't the biggest bust. And then we thought that Alex was going to be the biggest bust, but
But
it
Schumacher couldn't hold on. And I don't think Schumacher drove badly, although I didn't see much of him. But I think
right.
this is exactly what we were talking about after qualifiers, where a guy who's new to an oval race might know how to put in those two hot laps, but doesn't really understand how to work the traffic. That's
Right.
something Mick's going to learn over time. We're not worried about it. But he dropped 14 positions just like Alex. Roman did not start the race. So Alex is not 25th. He's 24th. So
Right.
I put to you, Harvey, because we have not discussed this, that in the event of a tie for mover or bust, you do still score a half a point.
You know what? I think you should get a full point.
What?
Yeah, I think I I think a bust is a bust,
I'm
right?
still right. Yeah, you're correct. I'm still right.
So
I
I'm
love
gonna
being
get
right.
I'm gonna give you a full point for that.
I'll
So
take it. And that sets the precedent for the season. In the event of a
right.
tie for mover or bust, we will go ahead and still assign that point because you're right. I got it right. I'm gonna bask in it.
So so now you have 2 points. I have 3 points, and then we get to the plot twist, which neither of us won. You were closer.
I was closer, but
You had two of the three Andretti cars finished outside the top 15,
well
right?
outside, yeah.
And but
But
one did.
one was way up there, so it was a
So we
pretty.
each get minus 3 points. So coming out of this race, I'm still at 0 for the season, and you are at +2.
I am at +2. I scored 3 points last week and -1 this
-1
week for
this
that.
week.
You know what's really like making me quite fussy is that I absolutely did not intend to make that my plot twist until you made yours, and then I thought, it would be fun if I said the exact opposite. Um,
Yeah.
maybe I won't. Maybe I'll put more effort into it and less effort into pranking you. But
Okay.
I do know me as a person, so I can't make that promise.
So next week, we're moving on to the inaugural race in Arlington. Um, we're going to talk about it on Wednesday's podcast. We'll see who we get for our midweek press conference so we can hear from somebody about that. But this is going to be an interesting race, brand new track. Uh, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to covering this one.
I think this race is going to be a real spectacle. It's clear from everything IndyCar has released and the way the drivers talk about it that IndyCar is trying to push this as a bit of a signature race on the
Right.
calendar. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they came up with and what they put together for their new signature.
Well, if it's anything like St. Pete, which, I was there, it was a huge crowd. It was a lot of glam around the track. There were a lot of people dressed up, a lot of, a lot of fashion around it. I think you're going to see that in Arlington. Dallas is a pretty high fashion town, and they show out when they have a big event. So,
You know what I'm looking forward to seeing is little YouTube videos of drivers, European drivers, trying on cowboy boots. I love those. I love those videos. They're hilarious.
well, there are so many international drivers in this field. We can have a bunch of that. Yeah, cowboy boots and cowboy hats.
Please, please, Mick Schumacher, go get fitted for a cowboy hat.
All right. Well, that's it for Rides and Drives Team Radio for this special Saturday Race Day podcast. We will see you all on Wednesday. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend.
And drive safe.